Welcome to the Den, the Dark Entertainment Network. I'm the Gothic Rose, and this is the dark tale of the day. Hello, dear fiends of the Den. I am the Gothic Rose, and as you know, here at the Dark Entertainment Network, this is a channel where the news meets conspiracy theories. It makes babies in my brain, and it comes out my mouth. If you like this type of content, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell. Hello, dear fiends of the Den. All week I have been talking on the haunted history of Hollywood, how Prohibition and the gangsters started to infiltrate Hollywood. And it's just become so fascinating. But with that, the gangster lifestyle also had a lot of effect on the regular population in terms of fashion and makeup. As you can see, I am wearing my red lips today, which was very popular for women in the 1920s. It had a lot of symbolism. So let's get to more haunted history of Hollywood and how we really still feel the ripple effects today. Gangsters, The Sopranos. Like I said, I was talking yesterday that maybe about a year ago, I don't know, they tried to bring back the mob wives. It may have been longer. And it just did not go over well with all of the tri-state area Italians. But gangster wear was big in the 20s. Very interesting that Hollywood really had such an influence over everyone that it had this lasting impact, shaping both menswear and women's wear. And we're seeing this come back now with the pinstripe suits that not just men are wearing, but women are wearing. And just on a side note, I know that everyone is ragging on Blake Lively's outfit choices in Another Simple Favor, but I actually did like the pinstripe suit. I just love that look. And I am loving Kris Jenner's iconic oversized suit. Her and Kim are just taking Paris by storm right now, but we'll get into that. But you can see how the 20s fashion, 20s, 30s, and 40s, featuring the looks of iconic gangsters like Al Capone. And this was the pinstripe suits, fedora hats, two-tone like wingtip or spectator shoes, wide lapels and double-breasted jackets. I mean, the fashion was iconic and it's making a comeback 100 years later. Even Pamela Anderson chopping her hair off into her iconic long flapper bob. That's about her rebellion. That's about her taking her life back from the image everyone saw to what she now wants to be. And I thought it was stunning. And I loved her Tory Burch dress. I thought it was stunning. And that's a lot of what the 20s was about. Women were dressing feminine, but they cut their hair very short, but the makeup was very glamorous. But with men, with these wide lapels and double breasted jackets, they had silk ties and pocket squares. And then by the 1940s, that evolved into the zoot suit. And then with women, the gangster era fashion, and so many of us think about Bonnie and Clyde, right? Miss Bonnie Parker. So she has the famed Hollywood gangster aesthetic, but it was actually her look. So we have the flapper dresses that I love, the sequined fringed knee-length dresses, the pinstripe suits. So women did adopt tailored suits similar to men's, and they often were fitted with waistcoats and wide-legged trousers, not even skirts. Whereas in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, it went back to skirts, but some slacks also. And then, of course, fur. So fur stoles and coats. And, this just gave a little touch of glamour and status. And then hats and fedoras. So cloche hats were popular among flappers. And some women embraced fedoras for a more gangster inspired look. I love both looks. And then, of course, the stockings and garters, silk or fishnet stockings paired with garters, that was a staple of the era. You can see that and hear that in the opening number of Chicago, All That Jazz. I'm going to rouge my knees and roll my stockings down and all that jazz. That's stockings and garters. And then, of course, the greatest accessories ever were in this era: the long pearl necklaces, the cigarette holders, the embellished headbands, and, just that whole beautiful bias cut fabric clothing, which is, in my opinion, the most beautiful, the most glamorous. And it's just amazing how it's coming back. There's so many people who are doing now hairstyles, finger waves and Marcel waves and bob cuts. Like I was just saying, Pamela Anderson did it. And then these huge voluminous updos, these chignons and the victory rolls. And of course, the mob wife aesthetic with the blowouts and the weaves and, the big wall of hair like we had in the 80s. We all did it with the with the Aquanet and the teasing comb and the hair dryer. And then, as I'm here wearing bold red lips, deep reds, and matte finishes were a staple. And that emphasized power and femininity. And that has a lot to do with the suffragettes, which I will be talking about next week during this time. And of course, smoky eyes, winged eyeliner, defined eyes, sultry and mysterious, and the thin arched brows, which made a huge comeback in the 90s. I was the poster girl for those brows. And of course, a soft, matte complexion. It was flawless, powdered finish, and that was preferred over dewy skin. I happen to like a combination of the two. I like a dewy cheek and a bold red matte lip like I am wearing. But these styles have come and gone over the years, but they're so classic. And I can see, honestly, just the way things are going sociopolitically. I could see the bob hairstyles really making a comeback and women doing things that empower them in ways that they did 100 years ago, because we are losing rights. History is repeating itself, and Hollywood is showing us that. Hollywood has always shown us that. And I think that that's what we're seeing reflected in the styles of what a lot of women in Hollywood are wearing today, doing with their hair and doing with their makeup, especially going makeup free in an attempt to break free from the status quo of Hollywood. So there's just a brief history of how Hollywood and gangsters inspired literally 3 decades of fashion. And yes, we're going to get more into all of this, as well as radio and more Broadway. And of course, we will be doing deep dives into the music industry as well, because everyone, including myself, is hooked now on the Diddy trial. And if I hadn't mentioned it before, Sean Diddy Combs grew up in Mount Vernon, New York. That is my hometown. I have tons of stories about lots of stars there, so stay tuned because I will tell them. But no, if you're wondering, I've never met Sean Diddy Combs. We did not go to school together. I just know that we lived in the same city. That's all I got on that. But tune in for these great stories, because I just put one in my shorts that talks about Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds when I used to live in the same town as them. Same story I told on Flossin Talk. Thanks for joining me in the den. And if you have any tips to share, please email me at welcometothedenpodcast.com. If you'd like to be a guest, let me know. You just must be 21 and over. And my dear fiends of the den, if you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell. And thank you always for joining me here on the Dark Entertainment Network.